Welcome to the Explainer. So, if you're sitting there right now, totally comfortable in the belief that you're in complete 100% control of your own thoughts, well, as we're going to discover today, that comforting belief, it might just be a complete illusion. Because right this very second, your brain is actively lying to you. It's lying about the people around you, the choices you make, and yeah, even your own deeply held memories. I mean, think about it. Are you actually in complete control of your thoughts? We all desperately want to immediately say yes, right? We want to believe we're the captains of our own ships. But the reality? The reality is that there's this dark architecture to the human mind. There are hidden rules of human behavior operating entirely under the radar of your conscious awareness. And they are making us incredibly vulnerable to subtle manipulation literally every single day. So if you answered yes to that question, well, psychology has a pretty rude awakening for us. You are dead wrong. These hidden psychological rules aren't just quirky little biological flaws. No, they are the exact same mechanics used by dictators, cult leaders, and master manipulators to pull your strings without you ever even noticing. And in this explainer, we're going to expose exactly how they do it. Trust me, by the time we finish, you will never look at a friendly stranger, a childhood memory, or even your own reflection the same way ever again. Okay, let's dive into this. We're going to start with a genuinely terrifying reality: the dark side of kindness. Now, we normally think of being accommodating as a hugely positive trait, right? Like a purely protective force in the world. But we're about to see exactly why the nicest, most generous people out there are often the absolute easiest targets for manipulators to destroy. To understand why this happens, we have to look at the clinical term for it. It's called the Ben Franklin effect. It's this bizarre psychological glitch where a person who has already performed a favor for someone is actually way more likely to do another favor for them. Like, think about that coworker who constantly asks to borrow a charger or a pen. You might just find it mildly annoying, but dark psychology completely inverts our standard understanding of human interaction here. We're taught our whole lives that we do favors for people we already like, but guys, that is simply not how the architecture of the brain actually works. See, we tell ourselves this really comforting lie: I do favors for people I like. But the dark truth is the exact opposite. We like people because we do favors for them. This is precisely how your subconscious gets hacked. If a master manipulator wants to infiltrate your life, they aren't going to shower you with gifts. That sets off our natural alarm bells immediately. Instead, they'll ask you for a tiny, insignificant favor. They'll just casually ask you to, hold their drink for a second, or spot them $1. So what actually happens in your head right after you hand them that pen or that dollar? Your brain instantly thinks, well, I wouldn't help them if I didn't like them. Right there, that is your own brain actively rationalizing the interaction. Your brain literally forces you to like them, just to justify the action you just willingly took. And just like that, you've rationalized your way into trusting a predator. They didn't even have to convince you of anything. They simply triggered your brain to do the heavy lifting for them. Now, this scales up from individual interactions into macro manipulation perfectly, because the human brain, for all its immense processing power, is actually incredibly lazy. It relies heavily on these mental shortcuts to process massive amounts of information quickly, a process known as cognitive ease. And that brings us to the illusion of truth effect. This is the tendency to believe false information is correct simply after repeated exposure. Literally, if a statement is repeated often enough, your brain mistakes familiarity for reality. Just imagine hearing a totally absurd lie today. You logically reject it completely, of course, but you keep hearing it. And by day 5, your brain just kind of stops fighting it. It just becomes a familiar statement. Give it 10 days of relentless repetition, and your lazy brain accepts it as absolute fact. It absolutely does not matter how ridiculous a lie is. This timeline is exactly how massive corporate gaslighting and political brainwashing operate. You aren't being convinced by logic or facts or strong argument. No, your logic is just being slowly worn down by pure repetition. So, we've seen how repetition deceives us, but what happens to our psychology when we're in severe danger and we're surrounded by a huge crowd? Think about a sudden public emergency, like, say, collapsing in a packed subway station. We all share this comforting assumption about protective humanity, right? That in an emergency, people will instantly rush to our aid. But what does the hidden architecture of our psychology actually say about that? The terrifying truth is that a crowded room is the absolute worst place to be during a severe crisis. And it's all thanks to a concept called pluralistic ignorance. This happens when a majority of group members privately reject a norm but incorrectly assume that most everyone else accepts it. In a crisis, psychology proves the devastating reality that the more people who are present, the significantly less likely anyone is to actually help you. Here's how it plays out. In a moment of sudden panic, everyone instantly looks around at everyone else for a cue to figure out how to react. But simultaneously, everyone is desperately trying to play it cool and look calm. Because nobody reacts right away, the collective consensus instantly solidifies into, oh, nothing must be wrong. It's the tragic, deadly logic of the bystander effect. If you're dying in a massive crowd, they will literally watch you pass away simply because no one stepped forward first to break that illusion. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is, have you ever done this? Have you ever just repeated a word to yourself like bowl or spoon over and over again until it completely lost its meaning? Until it just started sounding like a weird alien noise in your mouth? We've almost all done it as a silly childhood game, right? Well, there's actually a formal clinical term for this. It's called semantic satiation. It is a psychological phenomenon where repetition causes a word or phrase to temporarily lose all meaning for the listener. The sounds just completely disconnect from the conceptual meaning they're supposed to represent. Now, it's a fun, quirky little brain glitch when you do it with the word apple, but here's the horrifying reality. This exact linguistic glitch is actively weaponized against entire groups of human beings in dark psychology. It starts by taking a normal word that represents a specific group of people and replacing it with a cold, clinical, derogatory label. By relentlessly repeating that new label, the mind experiences that exact same semantic satiation we just talked about. It completely unlinks those specific people from the very concept of humanity itself. And the absolute most terrifying part isn't just that this linguistic conditioning works, it's how unbelievably fast it works. Less than 3 weeks. That is the chilling speed at which ordinary, completely peaceful people can be conditioned through targeted linguistic repetition. It literally takes under a month to manipulate an average person into becoming capable of committing unspeakable atrocities against their own neighbors, just by constantly overriding their brain's semantic associations. As we start to wrap up this explainer, there's one final, deeply unsettling piece to this puzzle. Knowing these facts, it does not make you immune to them. Your brain is intentionally wired this way by design. It uses shortcuts like cognitive ease and semantic satiation to save energy in a highly complex world, which means that mere awareness isn't some magical cure. You are vulnerable by design. So we arrive at the ultimate question you have to carry with you out into the world. The very next time someone approaches you out of nowhere and casually requests a tiny, seemingly innocent favor, you really have to ask yourself what is actually happening behind the scenes. Are they just being friendly, or are they actively trying to write malicious code directly into your subconscious mind? It's a whole lot to think about, isn't it? The dark architecture of our own minds is something we interact with every single day, often completely blind to the hidden strings being pulled. I really hope this explainer has given you the tools to look a little closer at the mechanics of human behavior. Thank you so much for learning with me today. Sleep well tonight.